It never fails. We finally get our favorite technology in hand, and we already start pining for what comes next. The rumor mill surrounding the latest version of the iPhone certainly seems to be picking up steam, so it's time for good old Grumpy Gary to bring us all back down to reality and remind us all, including me, that we should not be waiting for the brand new iPhone 14. So why is that? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Look, I love the iPhone. I've been solidly on Team iPhone since the XR, or the 10R, or whatever you feel like calling it. Before that, I did bounce back and forth between Android and Apple. I didn't really ever settle on one or the other. However, around the time that I got that 10R, that was also around the time that I bought my first MacBook. And team, let me tell you, once you get that deep in the ecosystem, you kind of get stuck. That's kind of a roundabout way of starting off with a disclaimer that this video is not meant to bash on the iPhone or bash on iPhone users. Just that we have a lot of fantastic options that we could buy today instead of waiting around the corner for something new, which is kind of the thing I say about a whole lot of different kinds of products. Which brings me into the very first reason to not wait for the iPhone 14 to launch. If you have a need now, buy what you need now. I will always start these videos off with that phrase. If you need a phone for school or for work or whatever, do not wait around for something new to come out. There is an iPhone out there today, from the budget line of the SE all the way up to the 13 Pro Max. There is something out there that will work for you today. There will always be something new and shiny around the corner. So if you wait every single time to stay current, you'll just never actually get anything done. Okay, now that I've got that done, I can get down off of my soapbox. The next reason to not wait for the iPhone 14, are you a fan of small phones? Because I kind of am a fan of small phones, even though I've got the 13 Pro Max out here today. Well, if you wait around for the 14, you'll probably only be able to get the regular size or the Max version. From the rumors I've seen, it looks like Apple will be discontinuing the mini lineup next year. And I gotta say, Apple, that breaks my heart. The minis have always been a pretty special device for me because I don't exactly love the current trend of bigger and bigger phones. Yes, I personally use a bigger phone, but that's because it has the battery life and the better cameras that I need. If the mini could have those two things included, I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd dump this and I would immediately switch back to that smaller option. I hate having a phone that's almost the same size as some tablets. Maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but I remember a time not so long ago when the cutting edge of cell phone design was making it smaller and more easy to carry around. Now it seems to be all about just making it big enough that you don't get muscle strain trying to tap on the screen. And sometimes, as I'm using the 13 Pro Max, sometimes it feels like they may have pushed that size and weight just a little too far. So if having a phone that will actually fit in your pocket and you don't then need to upgrade to cargo pants just to carry around your personal tech, well, you better buy one of those phones now while the buying is good, because if current rumors are true, we'll be playing taps here very soon for the mini lineup. And I get it, if nobody is buying them, you can't expect a company to keep making it, but it did absolutely break my heart to hear that they will not continue that. I hope that's just a rumor, and I do hope that we will see a 14 mini. The next reason to not wait for the iPhone 14, there's probably not going to be that much of an update with the display. Folks spent years asking Apple for a fast refresh rate option for their displays, and last year Apple gave us ProMotion inside of the 13 Pro and Pro Max. And yes, after using it for the past few months, it looks fantastic. But if it took Apple this long to give us that big of a bump in our screens, I don't imagine they would do another big bump the following year. I think we'll probably see the exact same types of technology that we saw last year in the next phones. So it's not like you're really going to be getting anything extra by waiting. Sure, I've seen rumors of a pinhole camera up front as opposed to the current notch, but, and you've heard me say this a ton of times, the notch really isn't a problem for iPhones. I honestly do not understand all of the vitriol that comes from notch haters online. I see so many angry folks in my TikTok comments, and I just don't get it. Obviously, my perspective is just that. It's my singular view of the world, and everyone gets to have their own opinion. Not only that, but different people experience visual stimuli differently. So maybe it is a real problem for a key number of folks out there in the world. But personally, it's never bothered me. The only time I notice that my phone has a notch is when somebody's complaining about the notch on my phone. And for me, it's not worth waiting another 6 months to have a slightly smaller obstruction on top of my phone display. If you are somebody that loves fast refresh rates, that ProMotion we already talked about has the 13 Pro and the 13 Pro Max already going at up to 120 Hertz. I would be legitimately shocked if the version after Apple upgrades to that faster refresh is that they decide to go even faster Like, that's not gonna happen. The only thing that I could potentially see being updated in the display is Apple taking ProMotion and the updated panel and moving that down to the 14 standard. I imagine the vanilla iPhone will be the phone that gets some of the updates, but they will continue to hold some things back to keep folks buying the more expensive Pros. One rumor I've heard is there could be a potentially 14 Max. So instead of the 13 and the 13 mini, you'll have the 14 and 14 Max. And it's like they're poking the bear there. It's such a sad day for those of us that like small phones. We lose the small phone and we gain a bigger phone. I guess if you absolutely needed the biggest phone possible, but you didn't want to spend the money on the iPhone Pro Max, that would probably be the only reason that I would say in this entire video to wait. But enough of that. Let's get around to the next reason to not wait for them. Cameras. You used to have to buy a very expensive, much bigger, dedicated option to take pictures of your family and or family pets. Then one day somebody had the bright idea to add it to a cell phone, and now that's like 70% of the reason that people buy these things anymore. That was a little bit of snarkiness, but I do have to say that the cameras on the 13 lineup are the best that I've ever seen, and they come real close to rivaling that of my bigger, more professional cameras. Much like the displays, it's going to be hard for Apple to really make any drastic updates to the cameras coming out next year. You need two things to make a camera quote-unquote better: a larger sensor and a wider open aperture, both of which happened with the 13 lineup. Even the 13 standard got the larger sensored wide-angle camera from the 12 Pro Max, and the 13 Pros have an f1.5 aperture on the wide-angle camera. Now what that means, aperture, is just how much light can get in. The lower that number, the more light gets in on the sensor. And those from last year are two pretty big updates year over year, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's just getting physically harder to make these better and better, because at some point the whole back of this phone is just going to be one large camera. I mean, look at this. The 13 lineup already has the biggest camera bump of an iPhone so far, and the rumors of a smaller, less obtrusive camera system on the 14 lineup mean that Apple is going to be running into the laws of physics when it comes to updating their latest cameras. I'm sure there will be some kind of an update. I would venture a guess that the telephoto could get a wider open aperture and maybe some beefier additional stabilization built in, but I'm not sure we'll see bigger sensors this year. And if that's the case, you really shouldn't be waiting around for the 14, because again, I've got to tell you, the cameras in the 13 lineup are phenomenal. And even though I have all of these expensive cameras around me to do all of this YouTube stuff, I use my iPhone 13 Pro Max exclusively as my family camera. I take every single family photo with this, and I have never wanted for image quality or resolution. It's so good. All right, the next reason not to wait around: power. Apple is doing some fantastic things with their in-house chip lineup, from their mobile devices all the way up to the most powerful laptop that I've ever seen. But at what point are we going to hit the usability curve? The iPhone 13 has the A15 processor inside of it, which is a chip that makes some pretty serious boasts of 50% power increases over its main competition. And while that's all well and good, what would a potential A16 really get you? 50% more power on top of 50% more power? I'm kind of an anti-benchmark kind of a person, and it's not because I don't like knowing what a device can specifically do, but I feel that it's really easy to fall into the trap of, oh goodness, the numbers are going up and I need to have the most and biggest numbers. The iPhone 6s got the latest version of iOS, so in reality, any phones released in the last couple of years will get all of the new cool features for years to come. Power in a mobile device only really matters in a couple of key spaces. One, screen operation, like that fast refresh rate does take some power, and two, longevity. And the iPhone 13 lineup has both in spades. Plus, it's got some of the best battery life thus far seen in an iPhone, but hold that thought for just a second. So it doesn't seem like a reason to wait around for a small processor boost in a few months, right? And the last reason to not wait for the iPhone 14, that thought we held, we're now picking it back up. The single most important thing in a phone for me, battery life. The battery life on the new iPhones was increased across the board from the 12 series to the 13 series. The standard iPhones got around 1.5 hours more, and the Pros have 1.5 and 2.5 extra hours, depending on the size you get. I love having a piece of kit that I never have to worry about, but it's getting pretty crazy in the battery lifespan of these phones. If a phone has 24 hours of battery life, what's the practical difference between that and a phone with 26 hours? I'm sure there are some people out there that detach from the grid and need a phone or whatever device to last as physically long as possible, But that's a very small niche of people. I would argue, and I have argued in the past, that there is no actual difference between a phone with 16 hours of life and one with 40 hours of life. At some point, my frail human body needs to sleep, and I like to estimate 8 hours of sleep a night because it's healthily what I need to get through the next day, and I will charge my phone while I'm asleep. I mean, that's just what I do. So for me, there isn't a reason to wait around for more. And okay, here's a crazy stat. I can go 2 whole days. Let me say that again for emphasis. 2 whole days on a single charge with my 13 Pro Max. That's watching YouTube, texting, making TikToks, all those sorts of things. This never ever runs out of power. If you need a phone that lasts for 2 days, well, good news, that already exists and you can get that in your hands today. Well, probably not today if you are watching this on Christmas Eve or Christmas. I bet stores will be closed and you might not be able to get it today. But next week if you are. So just go out and get it if you need it. How much more battery life could you ever need other than 2 whole days? But at the end of the day, so what, right? Much like the Mac videos where I say don't wait around for those, I am excited to see what Apple will come out with for the iPhone 14s, and I will absolutely buy them when they come out. But I'm in a specific use case where I buy that to make content about them here on the channel. If it wasn't for that, I think I would probably have peaked with the 13 Pro Max. There just isn't anything else out there that I could want or need in a phone. But what about you? What are some things that you are looking forward to with the new 14s? And are you planning on waiting, or are you getting something that works now? I want to hear from all of you. Let me know in the comments below because I would love to get everybody's perspective on this. Oh, and hold on, let me set this down. And if you like this video and you want to see what I think of the iPhone 13 mini after it's been out for a couple of months, good news. You can find my video talk about that by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.